Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A little bit of a later start on this Friday morning, a Friday of gloriousness, as we do see plenty of things happening in the short-term, medium-term timeframes on Bitcoin. We did hit the short-term and actually medium-term timeframe all on the same day, areas to the upside. Now, where does this lead us into as CMEs come to their closure for the weekly a little bit later today, as well as traditional markets also seeing the weekly closure. So plenty to talk about and more. And with that said, let's put the interest on the Krown Chain application over here, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We see that the Bitcoin dominance has actually come down a little bit from slightly over 59% yesterday down to about a little bit over 58.80 today. We see open interest also coming down as well, which is rather interesting here. Well, Jesus Christ, a little bit of too much alliterations are bad for the soul. But what I mean to say is that we're still seeing the overall range kind of hold within that being between about 1.9 billion to 2.1 billion to the upside, or sorry, not to the upside, but just the top side of that range, correlated with the range on Bitcoin price action between about 10,000 and 11,000. So we still haven't seen the resolution of that, and open interest coming down while price action does rise up yesterday is a little bit of a warning signal, but we really haven't seen any major move outside of the range to begin with. So it's more or less a moot point right now, and we should go look at the other metrics on the top end dashboard, which are the fear and greed index taken up to a 46, so 7-point increase from yesterday to today, taken up from a 39. And looking at the data tab over here, we've been slowly seeing the futures premium dissipate, but now we actually saw it pump back up quite a bit, about a significant difference right there, delta of about $150 from 10.7 to 185 region, or 185 to 150. That's what I'm trying to say. Jesus, man, it might be a little bit too much of an early morning for myself. Also, the global funding rate popping up to 0.03%. Still not a big deal, but still kind of holding the lows within that region that we saw from earlier this week. Other than that, I think we need to get into the actual price action charts themselves. And that reminds me, before we get into it, I should make an announcement, as Elsa's right here, and this is very much relevant to her. There's, for whatever reason, been some sort of an issue with the way that our email, or our internal email service has been working for the past week or so. So if you've been trying to reach out, or if you feel like you've been looking for some sort of service to happen or whatever it might be, it's very likely that we just haven't gotten an email about it. So if you do have anything, just email support@krowntraining.net. Elsa will take care of you right quick. And yeah, so there you go. Again, apologies about that. It's actually really fucking annoying for us, so I can imagine that it's even more annoying for you if you are trying to get into contact there. All right, so starting off with Bitcoin, we want to kind of follow up from yesterday's short-term analysis, right? We did say a 2-hour closure above 10,350-ish region would lead up to another medium-term time frame range test to the upside, which was 10,550. And if that area does get taken out to the upside, then 10.8 would be the next area. And what do you know? We see Bitcoin taking out 10,350 right here while it grabs onto the yellow 21 exponential moving average on this bi-hourly dildo right there. And then boom, nice move up to 10,550-ish region, actually within the next 4 hours, which is quite nice. And then what do you know? Another move up there. Actually, we close right at 10,550-ish region on this dildo right here. And then boom, there's your next move up to about 10.8, almost to the T. We do see on GDAX 10,795.87. What was it on Mexico? 10,818.5. And what about Stamp? Did we all get up there? Yeah, it looks like so. Yeah, 795.5 as well. So where does that lead us up into now? Is it time to get bullish? Is it time to look at this as it's the low is in, baby, and we're going to the motherfucking moon like Elon Musk on his Mars rocket ship? Maybe. But I still think that there's a lot of things to be aware of right here. So, realistically, when we're talking about the price action from yesterday, we're talking about short term and medium term. Remember that the long term is still more or less the same. As long as Bitcoin has lower highs being put in, it's no real reason, in my opinion, to be getting, overall getting a little bit too crazily excited. And our last lower high was right around about 11,100-ish region on a daily closing basis. Now, this did happen over a weekend, which was last weekend, obviously. And I do think that we could actually be a little more aggressive, or at least I could be a little more aggressive with potentially looking for or looking at this reversal off this $10,000 low once again earlier than that. In fact, if we go down to a 4-hour dildo time frame, I do believe any sort of a 4-hour dildo closure above the 4-hour 200 moving average right here, which is about 10,900-ish region, probably does do it. Technically speaking, yes, you're going to want to see 10,000, or sorry, not 10,000, but 11,100-ish region to be closed above. But realistically, we don't see the same thing on CMEs. And over here, I don't really look at that weekend price action as as important as what happens during the weekdays. So if we were to actually take that onto the upside today, especially, then yes, I would be looking for moves not only to 11,100, but realistically, 11.5, and it's just the same areas that we saw in from all of the month of August, as we've been saying for a while now. They're still very much relevant. We're just not that proximal to them. So this would again encompass the area between, I guess, at the most lowest point, 11,350. Then we got 11,550 right here. Whoops, let me actually get this one right. There we go. And then 11.8 to the on this area right here on that big old breakdown, and then of course 12,050 bucks as well. All still relevant if Bitcoin does want to move on to the upside, but I do hold my reservations for this move as it is thus yet. A lot of people getting extremely excited on this price action, and realistically, as it stands right now, it's just a lower high. So yes, on the short term and medium term, the excitement was certainly warranted, absolutely, and we've went over that. But now, what does Bitcoin need to do in order to kind of maintain this potentially good posturing going into the weekend? Well, as long as we are above 10,600-ish region, the exact same area, the exact same motherfucking area that we used for the downside earlier this week, I suppose I could be cautiously, extremely short-term bullish. Do I feel that way? No. Am I taking trades within that region? Within this region? No. I think that the trades that you are looking for within this region have already happened, or at least the ones that I was looking for have already happened. Again, that 350 up to 550, and then 550 up to 800 on all of those relevant closures. Pretty damn standard. Actually, Bitcoin did make it quite easy for us yesterday. Not always going to be like that, and I typically don't even trade breakouts to begin with, but yeah, those ones were quite obvious there. Anyways, as we are on the lower term timeframes, I'm curious what momentum is looking like here as Bitcoin does grind up against the 200 exponential moving average right here, which is also very, very important. The reason why it is important is because as long as Bitcoin is getting rejected off of it, which so far, kind of has been, although I wouldn't necessarily call this like a very obvious rejection as it is just yet. I mean, it can still kind of grind its way up here. But as long as it's below the 200 exponential moving average, the 4-hour death cross is still very much variable, very, very much available, and still very much viable as well. Jesus, man, I might need some more sleep or maybe some more coffee in my life. So that means that I still kind of look for that to kind of take over overall. And where's your next lower high going to be put in around, typically speaking, when looking at it, when looking at a cross like this, right around there. And of course, this also correlates with the daily 21, I do believe as well. Yes, indeed, we got up to it just briefly yesterday. Closed actually above as well, but below the 55 exponential moving average right here, kind of caught between two major moving averages. It's like a tail of two major moving averages. And realistically, where do we see Cyan 89 exponential moving average, which has gotten like all of these nice little small accumulation zones between about 10.5 and 10,000 even. It's at 10,050, 550-ish region. So I do think that Bitcoin's very likely to test back down around there, but that doesn't imply that it's actually going to break. I would actually be looking for a bounce off the first pass the next time that it does test it. It's also going to be where the 4-hour 21 exponential moving average is as well. So that is kind of my next big thing that I'm looking for, essentially. I do think that we're going to test down here regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish. The question is, do we actually break it or not? And if we do break it, well, I'd be looking for the same range as what we saw earlier this week to play out, where Bitcoin comes back down to about 10,350, probably plays another small bounce there, and then I'd be looking for continuation implied down to the same range that we saw on the 24th of September yesterday, getting hit to the downside, that 10,100-ish region. So all the ranges are still the same here, and realistically, as I've been saying for the past couple weeks, what are we looking at? We're looking at sideways bullshit price action. I know that a lot of people on crypto Twitter, crypto YouTube, crypto Reddit are always talking about moon this, doom that, moon today, Mars tomorrow, fucking Martians are getting on my orange coins and all this silliness, man. At the end of the day, most things are going to be mostly sideways within a range for most of the time. Just it's one of those things, man. It's just one of those things. But the levels are rather set here, and this is why I like to trade around the levels, not necessarily to and fro the levels, but actually like to play on the periphery of them. If you're asking like my personal strategies, which actually I uploaded a new video in the TA program. I think it was last week or maybe the week before. I didn't make a big announcement about it, sorry, but it'll actually go a little bit more into depth of my current strategy that I've been kind of employing while I haven't really been focusing or kind of been using more so high term timeframes as I focus on other things. Anyways, looking at this area right here, And momentum on the 4-hour total time frames. What do we see? We see 4-hour Stokes getting nice and uppity there. And what does that suggest? Well, we do have a nice trend line forming right here, which is still very much relevant, catching on to the D right there. Of which, if we are going to see it turn down, then we would expect to see, or if it is going to what's called respect this trend line. Respect my trend line, sir. It sounds silly. Then yes, we'd expect it to actually turn down right here, putting in this as its next local high alongside a major moving average. So it's good that these things do have confluence. And if we do look at the reverse duck indicator from good old pig, what does it suggest? It actually doesn't suggest anything right here. We'd have to go back down below about 10,500-ish region for it to turn momentum back down. That does actually really align well with that 10,500 to 10,550-ish region that we just spoke about earlier, because as long as Bitcoin's above there, can it kind of just flip back around and do a little and flop around and consolidate and have a nice run back above 11,000? Yes. It also does imply that if we do break it to the downside, Bitcoin's going to come back down and test the lows of yesterday. Extremely likely. That means 10,100-ish region. And personally speaking, I do not think it would stop there. I do think that it would come down over the weekend to about 98 to 9,900. Then I have to be careful once again, because just like I said yesterday, as long as Bitcoin is above 10,100 on a daily closing basis, I am not looking for this current bottom to fall out. This being the $10,000 region. It is still a potential reversal point. It will be a potential reversal point as long as we remain on a daily closing basis above 10,100 region, or on a weekly closing basis, actually the exact same area as well, which is exactly where the yellow 20-month exponential moving average is currently coming in right now, which currently still does have a positive slope. So all of these things are potential ideas, but still looking for resolution, probably going to be had in October. Not very unlikely to be September, at least I would think. I think that we're just likely to range here for most of the for the next week or so. Or how much longer do we have of September? Yeah, a little bit less than a week. There's 30 days in September according to my calendar right there. And by the way, yesterday I think I actually even reserved a 3090 Ti, so I'm so happy about that. And I don't know why that just triggered my brain to talk about that, but sorry. Anyways, probably annoying as fuck to hear me bark about that. Anyways, going back to the 4-hour right here. Yes, that does really solidify that 10,550-ish region as a nice pivot. Got another one closing in 3 hours, 23 minutes, and I imagine that this will come back up. And guess where that's going to come in around? Wherever the 21 is. As they naturally will have confluence. Looking at the 3-hour, do we see anything that is giving us a warning signal as of right now? No, not really. We do have potential hidden bearish divergence here between this point and this point. Caretaker, on Caretaker's RSI, when you see the dotted lines here, or sorry, the dotted dots, then that means that it's potential signal forming, but it's unconfirmed as of right now. And what needs to be done to confirm this is that this area right here needs to be confirmed as a local high, and this one will be confirmed as a local high if Bitcoin comes back down and closes the 3-hour dildo, especially below 10,650, and yeah, 10,650. If you want to be a little more conservative, 10,600-ish region. Like I said, though, I do think that that's going to happen actually regardless of the fact, and Bitcoin will come back down and test 10,550. That's where I do believe the next big piece of price action information is going to be around. But the 3-hour is suggestive of a few things other than that. It's also going to be a test of the bullish control zone the first time in a while, which typically does get pullback, regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish. So it's not like a crazy thing to see a pullback from this region anyways. The picture that I'm trying to paint is that coming back down to 10,550 is not problematic. Below 10,550 is problematic, but as long as you're above it, it's still, it's just rangy bullshit is what it is. Did we get a 3-hour Joule signal yesterday? Not really. A lot of people are calling it the 2-hour Joule buy signal from a couple days ago on the 24th, or I guess that was yesterday, really early in the day yesterday. And credit to you, man. That was a signal right there. I did not take it, and I didn't. And I was saying that it's probably going to produce a small bounce. This was definitely a little bit more than a smaller bounce. I was probably looking for 10,550-ish region. This one got another $300 on top of that. So there you go. The 2-hour provides all, and the 2-hour Stokes. What are we seeing right here? Crossing down right now. Will remain to the downside, basically as long as we're below the high of, or below the high of this current run at about 10,700. So again, regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish, this is setting up for a short-term pullback, very, very likely. The real question is, where do we find this next potential low? On the hourly right here, what do we see? We see something very similar to the buy hourly. We see hourly momentum coming down and will remain to the downside, basically as long as below the last printed high at about 10.8. And on hourly RSI, do we see anything of note here? Actually, a little bit of bearish divergence calling on the top from Caretaker, but easy portion of that's already played out. We already saw from 10.8 down to where we are right now at 10.650. I mean, how much more can you expect from an hourly? Personally, actually, it probably does come, again, it does come down a little bit more, somewhere anywhere between 10.550 and 10.6, where the 21 is right there on this time frame. So this is all, you know, in the periphery right now, and we're just kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, but that's what the lower term timeframes do look like. So I do think that we are setting up for a short term time frame pullback there. Again, big focus on the 10.550-ish region. If that area gets broken, I would look for the same areas to play off of that we saw on the way down as the way up, or sorry, that we saw on the way up as the way down. And it's like all backwards right now, and probably sets it up for another test back down somewhere around $10,000, give or take, like $50. But for right now, you know, it's kind of all quiet on the Western front. We do see historical volatility percentile. It did expand in that case that we saw yesterday, but now getting really hot like this, I would be looking for it to go into a contraction phase. And a contraction phase, essentially within the context of this range, would suggest what? Just more rangey between about 10.8 and 10,000 over the whole, especially heading into a weekend. Oh man, this is going to be. I have a feeling that this weekend is going to be hunt central. But we'll refrain on making any more judgments until we see the weekly closure tomorrow. Well, I guess, you'll see it today, technically speaking, but I'll analyze it tomorrow. Anyways, looking at the 12-hour, what do we see here? Anything in the medium-term timeframes that would be suggestive of caution or not so cautious? We do see historical volatility percentile expanding above the moving average right there, which is interesting. But do we see a greater contraction phase? No, we don't. It's actually been expanding for a while now. Very interesting, and the moving average does have a positive slope on it too. I'm not sure what to make out of that. Actually, that would probably be the biggest thing in the Boolaw's court right there, as momentum does turn up at the same time. Now, what would be needed to keep this momentum to the upside? Well, on the reverse token indicator cross, what would it show? Just under 10,500 actually. Kind of coming within the same base over here. So keep that area in mind. 12-hour RSI, I don't really see anything of interest, quite literally right in the middle there. I don't see anything to make out of that actually. Long term, it is constructive, yes, but that doesn't really help. That doesn't really help for right now. We're talking about like the last couple of months here. You know, it's been building a case, but that can still take a long time to get resolved. Looking at the daily, do we have anything here as well? Daily momentum will still be to the downside here too. However, it is getting into the neutral zone, which typically does see counter trend action. Daily momentum will actually turn back onto the upside with any sort of a closure above 11,000, and that would be a damn good area to kind of be aware of for further continuation to the upside. Once again, looking for moves back into basically, I could say 11.5, 11.8, and 12,000, but generally speaking, I'd just be overall bullish on that. I'd be looking to buy the pullbacks to be BTFD mode, if you want to call it that. Daily Jewel, do we see anything here? Not really. Could be lining up for something in the neutral zone, but I don't take those at all. And daily RSI, same thing here. Long term, constructive, yes. Short term, completely neutral, not anything to make out of that. So I suppose it would be a good idea to go through the 2-day and 3-day and then check out CMEs and then check out world markets. As we do see on the 2-day right here, yeah, it's showing the same thing. Any sort of a 2-day total closure above 10.850-ish region, or where is the 21 exactly? 10.821 specifically. Would be good. Keeps our momentum to the upside, which is kind of under pressure right here. We're right at the edge of the bearish control zone. We had a chance to close it to the downside yesterday. Didn't happen. No bueno. And what happens now? Well, we go onwards and forwards one more. What is very concerning to me though is the 2-day jewel is somewhat lining up here. Now this is again not an area that I like to take signals in, but I do like using it for bias on direction. So that would be another thing. It's certainly not confirmed as of right now. It still even take like another 2 ticks probably on that one. And do we close this tonight? I don't believe so. Yeah, we close it tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Is it AC on right now? It is on. Jesus, man, this thing does not work. This thing needs to work better. It's not even like hot out either outside. It's just we live on the top floor, and it's like for whatever reason, man, just hot air rises. I guess physics, or is that physics? Who knows? It's colder now. Okay, great. 2-day RSI, anything to make here? I mean, it's the same thing that we said before. Basically, long-term constructive, short-term completely neutral. Maybe even a slight bearish twist on the on the short term. I don't really have much to make out of that. And on the historical volatility percentile, still curtailing. So I would say that what we saw on the 12-hour was likely just a one-off, because I don't really see it on any other time frames. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and also the very, very high-term time frames just don't agree. So that's usually a good sign that that's not going to be the one to be rolling with. And as it states right, and and as it looks right here, the 2 days actually your best sort of Bula-ish case for the more immediate term time frames on a 2-day schedule, that is. And what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, well, we are back above the 10 simple, and you can see that it's kind of it's being governed by the 21, yes, but it's gonna, it looks like it has a chance here, especially after printing a nice hammer dildo like this. Typically, that is going to be a reversal dildo in traditional markets, but I don't really see dildo formations actually work out all that well in crypto land. I see it work out a lot better in Forex and traditional, actually, with specific interest on Forex. Bitcoin just, I think it's one of those things that kind of everyone knows, so they get played around with quite a bit. But anyways, as long as this next one does close below essentially the 21 exponential moving average, we will see this naturally turn down. It will be contained within the bearish control zone, and that would be another big piece of price action. But we're not going to see this resolve tonight. We have to wait until tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go to the 3-day as well. And this one also is a little bit more perspective giving, as we just popped up to test the cross of the 10 simple and the 21, which is going to have a bearish cross on the next tick, which happens tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So a lot of things being resolved tomorrow night. I need to take a sip of this water, man. My throat is way too dry right now. Uno momento, my friends. Just a sippy. Oh, so good, man. I got to tell you, finished water is the best water of all time. There's something that Americans do to their water that just poisons it before they give it to people, because I'm telling you, it tastes 100% different, as does pretty much everything here, in fact. Anyways, looking at this right now, yes, momentum will actually remain to the upside. Remember, this is coming from the same trend line test going all the way back to 2018. Like this is my best case for the Bulas, putting in a macro low at 10,000 like now. And that would be this trend line coming in from December 2018, catching on to this low right here at about 3,100, connected with this baby right here. If I could show this right here and right here, this is October 2019, and this is March 2020. So October 2019 was coming out of this major base right here before this like $3,000 run, which actually, this one's a little bit more damning though. If you remember this in October 2019, Bitcoin got a massive one-day move to the upside, but maintained the long-term downtrend. And while it was a $3,000 move to the upside, quite literally from 7,400 in one day to about 10,500, it eventually did get sold into, and there was no reversal of trend here, especially on the higher term time frames, only in the lower term time frames, and eventually did curl back on down over here to the next time that actually tested this trend line, which was right here. Let me throw it back on this baby right here. And that was at about 4,800, and then now once again testing it on this current run to 10,000, which I would consider that right there. So as it stands right now, is that to be looked at as a as something playable? Well, as long as it's viable there, yes, and as long as Bitcoin's above 10,000, that's why I've been saying 10,000 is a potential reversal point, is a potential macro low. It's not until we actually break it where I do start to look towards moves towards about 9,100, or the turtle move down to about 7,500. The fucking turtle thing is too great, man. The turtle thing is great because of the people that it actually pisses off to. It's fucking phenomenal. I mean, people can make up names for just about any formation possible out there. Especially if it's a creature name, it's usually not going to be legitimate. Just as a general rule of thumb, if it has like a name of an animal, usually not gonna be good. I've heard of like the fucking crab and the scallop and shit like that. It's not. I've very rarely seen these things work out. Just for what it's worth. But anyways, yes, as long as below this area, yeah, pressure down. The 3 days certainly a lot more unbecoming of a price action. But if we do start to close above 10.8 once again, yeah, I would be looking for this getting extension into the next week, actually back into the low $11,000 region. But the 3 day is kind of under pressure here too, as far as just price action goes. 3 day RSI, anything to be aware of? Not so much, no. I think that bullish divergence has mostly played out. I think that would be highly relevant to think that that's played out on $1,000 move to the upside, or more than $1,000 move to the upside. And that was hidden divergence, not regular, so typically going to be a lesser degree anyways. And what else do we want to talk about this time frame? Not so much. Okay, excellent. Let's go into the secondary charts here too. I want to do a quick look at them, and this is also a little bit more on the Bula-ish side. Actually, this is phenomenal right here for the Bulas, because not only did we close back above the 20 simple and the 10 simple, but now both of them actually have a positive slope for the first time in in a long time, actually. The positive slope on the 20 simple is not necessarily confirmed right now. It will be confirmed tonight with any sort of a closure here or higher, though. That is for sure. And we haven't had a positive slope on this ever since, well, the breakout from about low 9,000s to the $12,000 to $12,500 actually run that we saw about a month ago. So as it is right now, as long as we're above this area, yes, I should just be generally short-term bullish once again with the key consideration on that 10-8 region for the lower term timeframes. And if you want to go by the book, then I'd say 11,100, the prior high that we saw right here. But for what it's worth right now, one closure above is not the time to get excited, at least in the way that I trade these things. It's the next consecutive open and closure that we see above that does it, or the second consecutive closure above. One of those two things usually does it, with an open and closure being a little bit more powerful. And of course, we have an open above, so now all we have to do is just close above, and the magical number there would be. Where would it be? It'd be about 10,000. It'd be where we are right now, actually. Basically exactly where we are, where Bitcoin is traded right now. Daily MACD actually too, given a little bit of a fake out here as well. This is very interesting, as the MACD histogram does print positive once again. So this would again be a little bit more geared towards the side of the boo laws, even after a bit of a fake out both ways, which is, well, these things can happen, of course. But I'm curious to see if the same thing happened on CMEs over here. And no, actually not. And this is why I put a lot of weight on this chart. It usually is the chart that lies less. With that said, we do see the MACD looking for a bullish cross right here. And if that does happen, while it actually does take out both the 10 simple and the 20, which right now it's getting rejected by the 20, and the 20 still has a very negative slope actually, and it's currently exactly where we're trading right now. Then yes, it will very likely lead up for not just test back up to 11,200, but very likely back up to the high 11,000s. So we're at a very pivotal point right now, where Bitcoin's going to choose direction probably in this next week, and choose direction outside of the range of about 11,100 or below 10,000-ish region. I do actually believe that we're going to see resolution on that range, but going into this weekend right now, probably more sideways more than anything, with setting up for potential resolution next week into October. That's what I'd mostly be looking at with the MACD, also hinting a little bit more Bula-ish side. However, I want to see these levels taken out, and then I can kind of get on the same side as that. Okay, cool. Is there any other time frames that we want to briefly check out? Maybe a weekly. Weekly is just bouncing off the 20 simple again. Nice one. Do we see the same thing on spot price action right here? Yeah, pretty much same thing. And where's the 10 simple? Right around 10.8. Yeah, they're all in the same areas here essentially. So this is more or less solidifying these areas as good pivot points that we see. And my general bias is extremely short term. Probably does line up for another downside test down to 10.550, 10.600ish region. Do we break that or not is a real question. If it breaks, then I'll be looking for a quick move down to about 10.350ish region, small bouncy bounce implied there, and probably for the continuation back down to about 10.1 or 10.2, whatever it ends up being, with another small bounce there. I actually do not, even if Bitcoin does break to the downside here, I don't think that it's going to break below the 10,000 floor just yet. If that were to happen, I still think that Bitcoin would spend a little bit more time kind of having these anemic bounces off it. But for now, still lower highs, and while we'll have a chance to reverse a little bit here, I'd still want to see that happen before actually getting on the side of that. And with that said, let's go check out world markets now, as this is, or actually before we do that, you know what? Since we have all the levels in mind, let's go back on over here. Let's go see what Pig has to say about the probabilities and the Pig probabilities, baby. All right, where is it? Where's my expect? Do I want to do probability panel or expect move? I'm going to do probability panel for this one because I actually want to see the exact level. So to the upside, what do we want to use? Well, I suppose the most relevant level to the upside here, again, going off this region, for now would be about 10.9, but this will naturally come down to about 10.8 over time. And I suppose we could use 10.9, just err on the side of caution here more than anything. So I'll put in 10.9 there. For the downside, very obviously going to be 10.550ish region. And let's see what the probabilities would be on a 4 hour. Ooh, hello, it's Kitchens. It's Kitchens. Oh, beautiful. Well, first and foremost, I want to point out this inside probability range, 83.4%. What's the most likely thing to happen? just sideways, just fucking sideways. Now this is only speaking to the next 4 hour total closure, 3 hour, which is coming in 3 hours and 6 minutes. After that, naturally changes. Yes. So that, this message will explode in 5 seconds after posting, if you want to call it that. The above target probability above that 10.9 region, 2% versus below target probability a lot higher, 14.5%. But let's look at what this would be on a 12 hour and a daily. 12 hours going to show 24.75 probability to the upside versus below target probability is actually less than that. So right now the upside is favored. Inside range probability is just under 58%, so still the most likely thing to happen, but above target probability is technically favored over below, which we see a little bit of a flip there. So yes, naturally speaking, more sideways above 10,550 will start to lead up towards more upside. And looking at it daily, I'd expect the same thing. And yes, indeed, we see the same thing. Above target probability, a slight differential, but technically higher by about 3% above the below target probability. And the inside range probability here is actually lesser than both the above and below, which is rather interesting. So that actually would suggest that we're going to see resolution or potentially resolution today. 1 out of 3 chances of what these all kind of come out to is, well, that's relevant. I mean, that's very much something that can actually happen from a probability standpoint. Something that's definitely worth preparing for. So maybe I will be wrong about looking for resolution on this, like maybe late next week, but could very well be actually today, according to this. But again, probability is just 1 out of 3 chances. So fair enough. There you go. Anyways, okay, alrighty. Let's take this off for now and let's go over and check out world markets. Let's see if traditional markets have anything to give as far as biases go. And looking at this right here for Nasdaq, still looks like shit. Still looks like shit coming into a Friday closure. We did get the bounce up to about 11,000 that we spoke about yesterday. But here's what I mean about 11,000 just being another lower high. I mean, shit, the scheme got extended another almost $100 from 11,000 to 11,100. We're still just following the downtrend here. So I do feel problematic about this, or I do feel like this is problematic. Looking at the daily, very anemic bounce off the 89 exponential moving average. Do I think that we could get another move back up to about 1150 or 11.1? Yes, but that doesn't really do anything for price action. This is still an overall downtrend with your high right here, low right here, lower high right here. Do you want to call this another lower low and a lower high consecutively? Yeah, you could say that. And then closing on another lower low yesterday, I would still err the probabilities on the side of the downside. Looking at the weekly, because that's going to be the most impressive or the most important one coming into today's closure. I think that it might be warranted to actually just wait until the weekly closure. I feel like we've had some really good moves on this Nasdaq E-mini futures for SPY and basically all the major market bourses. And this is still, as we said yesterday, this is the bounce area more than anything. So if it did come back down to swipe the current lows, I don't think that it's going to break down this week. If this is going to break down, it probably happens in October, not this week, and very unlikely to be in September. The reason being is just because this is your proverbial bounce area, and we can play out some time going sideways between basically 10.7 and 11.5, and still not really do anything different. I'd like to see this weekly closure later today to kind of judge whether this has more proximal potential actually breakdown. Now, if this is going to break down, here's what I would look for today. I don't think that it's going to break down today. I think that it would set up for a breakdown maybe into next week. And I'd want to see a closure anywhere below 10.8. If that does happen, any sort of a closure below 10.8, that would be setting up for a nice move to the downside, nice continuation drive to the downside, which I still have a nice 10,500-ish target for the next bouncy bounce, although you could kind of argue that we have already played that out. And maybe not necessarily $150 off the low. I'd have to disagree with that. Yeah, I'd still be looking for a bounce at 10.5, small bounce there, and then come back and reanalyze it after that. But for right now, again, I want to see the weekly close more than anything else. I think that'd be too premature to make a judgment right now. Like I said, there's been a lot of easy plays on this one for the past week. Right now is the time to be watching and waiting for the next more obvious play, at least in my opinion. Of course, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is a further thing from financial advice, actually. So a little bit of waiting, and I expect that that's going to be the same thing on E-mini futures for SPY here as well. Yeah, very similar chart. Is it looking like continuation of the downside? Yes, it is overall, but looking at the weekly, is this your bouncy area? Yes, exactly as we said yesterday. This is more or less a bouncy area. Probably does try a little bit higher, maybe even all the way back up to 3,300. So fair enough, fair enough. I want to see the weekly closure on this one. Does this look like it wants to have a little bit of a green dildo party all the way to 33? Perhaps yes, perhaps yes. What does that mean for Bitcoin if it does? Well, Bitcoin would very likely break the top side of its next range to the upside if that were to happen. And then I'm basically looking for moves into the mid 11,000s into the next week. So this can really have a lot of implications right now, but I feel like I still want to see the weekly closure. Trend is obviously your friend. In this case, it is down. But on the weekly, higher term timeframes, we're in a bouncy area. I really don't like selling into the 21. I'd like to let this one play out first. So I do think that's going to spend some time, maybe between where we are right now and somewhere around 3,300, and then we'll come back into next week and see what what it's kind of aligning with. But for right now, I'd kind of hold tight on this. Let's go look at Tesla. What's Tesla doing? More of the same. Don't really have anything new to speak about here. Maybe short-term move back up to about 420-ish region. But overall, I do believe that the high is in, as I've been saying. Ranging here for a while is fine, but as long as the whole lower high structure is followed below 450, I do believe that we are seeing a major parabolic blow off top in progress. Now, technically speaking, it is actually still in an uptrend, to be fair. It's kind of in an uptrend, kind of not an uptrend, because you do have your high right here, you have your low right here, you have a lower high right here, obviously, yes, but you also do have a potential higher low in right here too. So obviously this is going to be decided, again, probably later today. I want to see the weekly closure on this one. If I wanted to make it easy, any sort of a weekly closure below 365, I get bearish for extension down to the mid to low 300s. So I guess, no, that would be 300 actually next target. By the same token, closing here or higher doesn't really do much for me to the upside. No, not really. I'd just be looking for more rangy behavior between about 450 and 400-ish region. What else do we want to check out? Maybe euro dollar really quick. What do we see on euro dollar? Looking for a little bit of a short-term bouncy upside too. Maybe short-term back up to about 117 region. But again, same thing here. I want to see the weekly closure. This one's looking the most reversal-ish of the majors that we've seen just yet. Now, this is obviously Forex, not necessarily the same thing as the other things. But this one has been driving macro direction. Any sort of a weekly closure below 117, I do get bearish for continuation coming in next week. Do I think that we're going to see continuation today? Probably unlikely. And I do believe that if we do see continuation in the next week, I'd be looking for the next major bounce right around about 115 to 115 and a half. And if I had to call it right now, I think that something like that would probably happen in October, not this month that we've been saying for a while. But remember, this is still, holding within the same range, getting rejected off the same trend line going back almost 12 years ago now, actually more than 12 years ago now, a little bit more than 12 years ago now. And the trend is your friend at the end of the day. And I am bearish on this one as long as we are below 119 and a half. And that has been, it's been a pain in the ass to hold, but hey, got to stick to my guns on that one. And I do believe that we are seeing this one in progress for now. So the next piece of the puzzle would be a weekly closure below 117, setting up for a resolution or further downside coming in next week. For right now, more or less range between where we are right now in 117. Not much else to add on that one, but I do remain looking at this as mostly a major reversal in progress on a monthly, and probably likely to trade back down to about 115 over the next couple months. What else do we want to check out? Okay, we got all that. Let's go look at Dixie really quick. What's Dixie doing? My Dixie chicks. Weekly looking good. It's basically just the opposite chart of what we saw on euro dollar. Sorry, let me get rid of that silly trend line right there. Not relevant. Any sort of a weekly closure above $94. I'm looking for further upside coming into next week in October, all the way up to 95 and probably 96 long term, 90 or 96 and a half long term. This is also going to come alongside if it does happen on a monthly closure, any sort of a monthly closure above 94. And yes, I would be looking for not only this to play out to about 96, but then we're going to have hidden bullish divergence going all the way back on over here. Yes, that is still very much present, calling this low all alongside the 200 exponential moving average, which is quite powerful. And I'd be extending those targets probably back up to 97 and a quarter at the very least. That'd be a pretty aggressive signal, and I do believe that would be warranted long term, like very long term. I'm talking like 3 to 5 years out. I'm actually massively bullish on the dollar. So fair enough. Is this going to be your next macro low right here? Potentially yes. Could very well happen. So fair enough. If this is going to head upwards and onwards, then what we'd expect on other things, well, mostly to the downside. If you're trading against it, not in a one-to-one fashion, doesn't work like that, obviously. But overall, that'd be the general disposition. And looking at a daily right here, are we coming to do a little bit of sideways action? Yes. Again, range to see upside short term going to be just under $95, and to the downside 94 again. I think that the same thing that I said about all the other major traditional markets, I'd say the same thing about here. I want to see the weekly closure. Kind of the same thing on Bitcoin as well. I want to see the weekly closure. It's looking good right now. It's looking like it's going to have a chance. This is a bit of a runaway low, or it's definitely a runaway low right now. But the next piece of the puzzle is closing above 94. And if it does that, yep, I'd extend targets quite a bit to the upside. Pullbacks will happen, obviously somewhere around 95, 96, and actually just about every dollar increment about. But yes, the general disposition would be uppity. Okay, what else do we want to check out? Some uni bullshit. Hey, we have a weekly here. All right. We almost have 2 weeklies. Great. What about a daily? Not much to make out of that. Yeah, I don't think that I can analyze a chart like this. I don't think that that's fair. At least not long term. If anything, this is looking, well, if you're bullish, you're looking at this as an ascending triangle. If you're bearish, you're looking at this as bearish divergence. I think that actually probably works out more as an ascending triangle, looking at the volume signature, looking at the overall structure, and just the fact that we haven't really, Caretaker does not identify this as divergence just yet. I probably would though. Let's see what it looks like on a 2 hour, just out of curiosity. Yeah, probably not. You don't really see divergence plays come within a region like that, so fair enough. All right, well, in that case, let's go on over here. Let's go check out the tech sector. Sorry, that's financials. Go to tech over here, as this one typically does trade with Bitcoin as well. It's a little bit more correlated with Bitcoin, as typically I look at Nasdaq to kind of govern that, but Nasdaq takes into consideration both financials and techs, and there's actually more financial names in there. Bitcoin obviously being a tech trades more so with the techs, and if you want to recall back to last week's long-term analysis, there was a stronger correlation coefficient with XLK over Nasdaq, and especially over XLF, the financials. Looking at this one right here, same sort of thing. Looking at a weekly, we're in a bouncy area. Would I have liked to have gotten down all the way to about 107 earlier this week? Yeah, but close enough is close enough. I want to see the weekly close now. Anywhere below 107, yeah, obviously bearish in the next week, but not going to really get too much by analyzing this one right now. Daily would actually be a little more geared towards the downside if I had to call it. Looking at momentum oscillators, not really getting much out of them right now. So realistically, I think that a healthy amount of waiting until the weekly closure is the right call here, at least for myself. For the more aggressive traders out there, hey, fair enough. Have at it. And speaking of, let's go check out Link, which was one of the big winners yesterday. Let me pull this back. Let me pull you back over there. And what do we see for now? We do see, well, it did head up to this night. I did say, I think 100,000 Satoshis earlier this week. 100,000 Satoshis was tested yesterday. Hey, not bad. Sometimes the TA bullshit actually works out, huh? So what now? Well, we're at another pivotal moment right here. If it does want to get another try to the upside, still 100,000 Satoshis is the magical area. But I would not get I'd not get bullish for another move. Let me actually redo this chart too. It's a little bit too convoluted right now, even though all those areas are still very much relevant. I'd just be looking for a range between where we are at right now and 100,000 Satoshis. As long as below 100,000 Satoshis, can't really get too excited about things, although momentum oscillators do suggest a little bit more favor to the upside here in daily RSI, getting back above the exponential moving average and also rejecting the bearish control zone. Do I make much out of that? No, it's very likely to follow the rest of the market direction, actually, even though Link is kind of the darling of this market. Above 100,000 Satoshis, though, I would look for another big run. Very likely back up to about 120,000 Satoshis, all the way up here on this little node right here. But for right now, probably want to wait for the weekly closure on this one too. Yeah, and like we said yesterday, it's in a bounce area. If this one wants to bounce up to 120,000 Satoshis into next week, completely fine. But this one still does look long-term toppy-ish. So keep an eye on the price here as very, very long-term. We can bounce up quite a bit here. I mean, this would even be about a 33% move if that actually does happen, and still remain, overall long-term bearish, which is a bit problematic there, huh? Let's go look at link versus dollar as well. I'm curious if there's anything different here to be aware of. And same thing here, you know, could bounce up all the way to like 11 and a half, $12. I don't even think that would be asking for too much even. But still, long term does look more or less toppy there, as far as the macro trend goes. Yeah, and again, you know, another one kind of popping down here, rejecting the 200 exponential averaging up. Classic shit. This is why we're looking for bounce within this region. This one just getting, you know, and if anything is going to get a little bit crazy, it's probably Link, as that was one of the darlings of the market, and probably going to be one of the better actors. For this next segment, let's go check out Mr. Buterol. How's he doing? For 343, and similar things here. Short-term resistance to the upside about 360-ish region. As long as we're below 360, or especially below like 370, it's just another lower high. And we do have an official downturn right here. Here's your high, here's your low, here's your lower high, here's your lower low. And where does your next lower high get put in around? Well, anything below 370 especially is a lower high. So I am bearish on this one long term, as long as we're below about 370, we'll call it. Maybe look at 365, depending upon how aggressive you want to be. I think actually 365 probably does work just as well. 4 hour looks a lot more toppy. We do have hidden bearish divergence, or do we? No, this wouldn't. Oh yeah, no, it's coming from this area right here. It's potential right now. It's potential according to the dotted lines. And yeah, this one does look like it wants to come back down short term to about 333 region. Probably short term bounce there. And if it does break to the downside, I look for a retest of the lows. This one's probably the most bearish one, the most bearish of all the charts that we've looked at on the short term right now, because this one is actually looking like a confirmed local high right here, especially with any sort of a closure below the 21 on this next one coming in about 2 hours and 50 minutes. So keep an eye on that. I'm keeping an eye on the. Oh my God, man, it's already 45 minutes in. What the fuck? What the actual fuck, man? All right, let's start wrapping this bitch up. Jesus, man, sorry about that. I don't mean to make your ears bleed with my raspy lesbian voice. But going back on over here into Bitcoin, what do we see? Well, actually, we see the same thing formulated right now. Hidden bearish divergence is potential, and if that does get confirmed, I'd look for a quick move down to about 10,550-ish base. I think that very likely things test back down there regardless of the fact. Personally speaking, I don't think that it holds. I think that you're going to see a short-term bounce there and then continuation back down to about 10,000. I don't think that this range is done just yet. I think that people are getting extremely excited about what is thus far just a lower high. Yes, the short-term, medium-term time frame trades are very much available, absolutely. But I still reserve my reservation. I still have reservations here. I'm very reserved on this one as long as you're below the 200 simple on the 4 hour, especially. Even the 200 exponential average is a little bit damning there too. As long as you're below, it kind of makes it difficult to be looking at this as a nice blast to the upside. For right now, I think that this is kind of another anemic, anemic test to the upside. Very low volume on this one in the overall context of this consolidation phase right here, and we're probably still just ranging is my general disposition. So above 10 or wherever the 200 simple is, as it will kind of travel further south naturally. But as long as we're below there, I'm not really looking for any like major moves to the upside. Above it though, I would look for, well, obviously a quick move to about 11,200, the same areas that were relevant to the upside right here, 11,550, 11,800, and then 12 and a half. Any sort of a daily closure, obviously above 11,100, I'd be quite excited about that. Just generally bullish all the way to, the upper 12,000s over time. But by the same token, it does look to me like Bitcoin wants to test back down to 10,550-ish region. I would be looking for a very, 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 very short-term bounce there. And if it does break, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to come back down all the way to 10,000 and play out this range once again. I don't think that we're done here, to be quite honest with you. I think that whether you're bullish or bearish, the most likely thing is sideways, boarish, baby. It's a boar market. And that's it for today. I want to wish you well. I want to wish you the best, and the happiest. Take care, and until next time.